Welcome to the Alchemy Consulting Group podcast. Join Arquella Hargrove, Alchemy's Chief Culture Officer, for impactful conversations with business leaders and experts who are committed to transforming their work cultures and creating inclusive work environments. Let's learn, develop, and garner best practices together. Enjoy this episode.
Welcome to the Alchemy Consulting Group podcast, where we distill conversations with thought leaders to bring you transformative insights and strategies. Our mission is to revolutionize organizational cultures, one business at a time. Join us as we explore vital topics that empower leaders, galvanize teams, and reshape the world of work. Let the alchemy begin. And I am excited that we have one of my friends and collaborators, Joni Goodman, and so looking forward to the conversation today. Welcome, Joni.
Thank you, Arquella. Thanks, Yvonne.
So good to see you.
Likewise.
It is. We've seen each other again all through the summer and all, but definitely was excited to have you join us here. And yeah, so you can share just all the great things that are going on in your world with our listeners. So if you can introduce yourself, Joni, and tell the listeners, a little bit more about yourself and what you're up to these days.
Absolutely. So thank you again, Yvonne and Arquella, for having me. My name is Joni Goodman, and I am a biochemist, believe it or not, by trade, turned experiential facilitator, master trainer, executive coach, and professional speaker. And I started my company in 2016, and Arquella was really instrumental in being a mentor and helping me to do that. And so what I've been up to lately is doing facilitation, lots of facilitation around the Dare to Lead work. I also have, since launching my company, started a program for women called the Encounter You Luxury Women's Experience. And so I've been working on doing some master classes that lead up to that. And then servicing clients through, I call myself a quote unquote assessment junkie. And so doing some assessment work with team members and then also groups as well.
Well, Joni,
Awesome.
You're really known in the space for your Dare to Lead work. So for those who may be listening and they're not very familiar with Dare to Lead, tell us more about the programming that you do around Dare to Lead and how you got started in it.
Yes.
As a biochemist.
Yeah.
Exactly. By way of a circuitous route. So how I found my way to the Dare to Lead work is maybe not how one would expect. So in about circa 2006 through 2008, my life was really not going as I expected it would go. In essence, personally and professionally, all aspects of my life were sort of crumbling before my eyes. And I finally took a hard and fast look and said, long before Taylor Swift came out with the song Anti-Hero, I said, it's me. Hi, I'm the problem. It's me. I'm the common thread through my work, through my intimate relationships, through my friendship with my family. And I'm the only one that I can do something about. So I started working with a therapist. And she actually introduced me to Brené Brown through the Power of Vulnerability TED Talk. And this was back when I was living in Indiana. So hail to any Hoosiers that are out there listening. I relocated to Houston in 2013, and I found out Brené is here. She's in Houston. And so I was like, how can I get involved with her and her work? And when she came out with Dare to Lead, it felt like it was in alignment with my expertise with coaching and facilitation. So I applied and went through the certification program with her in 2019. And I have had the honor and privilege of doing this work for the past 5 years. And so really what is involved in the work is an introspective journey that you go on to discover the type of leader that you are. And that is through assessing your vulnerability and then learning the 4 skill sets of courage, which is rumbling with vulnerability, living into our values, braving trust, and learning to rise. And the cool part about this is these skill sets are teachable, measurable, and observable. These are things that we can teach people in order to be brave and courageous as a leader.
I love it, Joni. Definitely, again, just remembering your journey and just, being, a part of that, and love it again when you think about that vulnerability, right? And that when people and leaders are able, and I tell leaders this, right? When you're able to be vulnerable and authentic, guess what? That helps to build those trusting and respectful relationships. And so leaning into that, and I love how Dr. Brené Brown, does that and gives us examples, right? And that Dare to Lead programming is wonderful. So I definitely highly recommend it for any teams and leaders who are looking again to develop their teams even more, for sure. Also, Joni, you mentioned, not in addition to Dare to Lead, that you also have been a champion for, again, your self-development, self-care, self-investment, and you've done that for yourself. Tell us about some of the other recent work with your self-care and these exclusive retreats. I love a good retreat for sure. And confidence building workshops. Tell us more about that too, and just in alignment with the Dare to Lead programming.
Yes, absolutely. So I mentioned in my introduction the Encounter You Luxury Women's Experience. And so just a little context and background on how that came about. So I like to say that we were given an unfortunate, but maybe fortunate opportunity during the pandemic. I call it the pandemic pause, where we all had the opportunity to take a step back and reflect, hey, are we doing everything that we really desire and want to do in our life? And for me, I realized that some of the things that I had personally benefited from the most were programs that were specifically designed and geared for women. And I know that there are some out there, but honestly, I feel like even with mine and the addition, there's not enough. There needs to be more. Our journey is a little bit different in life, especially as a female leader. And so that is kind of how Encounter You was born, because I was desiring a community of like-minded women to come together and to really step into their power and to who they are and to support one another through that. So that is I call it my flagship program, and it's the start. It's a weekend-long experience, and it's the start of a year-long growth container where we support one another through assessing to become aware of who you truly are, who you really are, and owning all of those parts. So even the good parts and the not so good parts, and then being able to share what you discover with other people, and then ultimately being able to manifest and monetize whatever it is that you desire in your life. If that is, I want to retire early, if that's, I want to launch a side hustle, if that's, I want to get promoted at work, knowing that you have all of that inside of you, but just getting a little support and help with getting in touch with that.
Joni, as I've had the privilege to get to know you, a word that comes to mind for me is courage. And it's a word that I not only use to describe you, but I hear you use a lot. And even in just what you've shared in our few minutes together, the courage that you had from the time of 06 to 08 to just hit the pause button and recognize that there were things in your life that maybe you had to get back on track or get back into alignment. And the women's leadership programs, just identifying that there's a void out there, and how do I go out and create one? So talk to us about courage as it relates to leadership, and just some of the things that are included in your developmental training opportunities that really focus on that tenet, that characteristic of courage.
Yeah. So for me, I mentioned, with my personal journey of working and partnering with a therapist, I discovered that something that I had not been named really, but I had struggled with my whole life, even in childhood, was anxiety. And so working through all of that, I had the courage to leave Indiana and relocate to Houston. And when I relocated to Houston, the fourth largest city in the United States, and I'm from a map dot, the Mayberry of the Midwest, where there are 3,000 people on a good day, I didn't know any single person, not one single person when I moved here. And that was really a testament to the progress that I had made on working on myself. And so that was something that I felt was really paramount and instrumental for everyone. And I wanted to help people to have the courage to do that because it's not easy work. And so I think courage leads to the trait of self-awareness and being able to take a step back and really look at yourself and accept the things that you're not proud of, maybe, and realize that if you can process and work through those, that it can unlock parts of you that are meant for you to shine and to get you on the path that you are meant to be on. And so for leaders, really having that opportunity to be self-aware themselves, because then and only then can you be aware of other people, for those that are colleagues of yours, for your boss, for the people that work for you. So being able to understand what your communication preferences are. What are your behaviors that are maybe strengths, but they get overextended and then they become a blind spot? How to handle conflict. How do you handle change awareness? We talk a lot about change management, but are we aware as a leader how we respond to change? Because we're leading this initiative and this effort for our team. And if we're not doing well with it, understanding our emotional response, becoming more emotionally intelligent, those types of things are really instrumental. And to me, are the paramount and measurement of courage of an individual to really become self-aware. And another key thing with the self is self-love, to really love yourself through all of that.
I love the connection that you make to courage and self-awareness in that journey. Oftentimes we hear like courage is the ability to do things while you're still afraid. And some of the things that you're most afraid of are those reflective moments, right? Mm-hmm. Those things about yourself that you know are there, but maybe you're a little afraid to uncover that rock or, look at that particular issue. So, Joni, I love how you tied it both to personal and to work related parts of the journey, and being self-aware and not being afraid to do so.
Yeah. I often tell people that you're a human being no matter where you are. And oftentimes in the workplace, we're expected to perform and take action and get things done, but we're still a human being, not a human doing. And so we oftentimes lose sight of that, especially in the workplace. And we can even do so personally in our lives. We take on that always having to do something. And sometimes it's just taking a step back, and inaction is even doing something, taking that pause.
Yeah.
And what you just
definitely
said reminds me of a quote from the famous gospel singer, Mahalia Jackson. She would say, "I take me wherever I go." But if you don't have the courage to know who your me is,
yes,
you're not in control of how you're showing up. You're not aware of how you're showing up. So all powerful. I know I just kind of leaned in, Arquella. I'd love to hear your voice on the topic.
Yeah, no, I think that's great, right? And, Joni, you touched on a lot of those points, right? When we work with leaders in some of our leadership programming, it's that self-awareness, right? That leaders, we start there. So again, they're more self-aware of their emotional intelligence. They're more self-aware of how they show up and how they communicate. And then two, again, how do they make sure that they are continuing to show up, humanize themselves, right? So definitely some great points there for sure, and great reminders that, leaning into the courage, leaning into the discomfort, because that's how we learn, that's how we grow for sure. And so, Joni, you again mentioned the Dare to Lead, and again, just some of the great work that you're doing as it relates to the retreats. But what do you say to someone who is reluctant to invest in themselves, via these types of development opportunities? And I tell, as us as business owners and leaders, right, we first have to invest in ourselves. And, I tell people I bet on myself every day, all day. And so, right. And so again, continuing to develop, because that's how we're going to learn and grow our businesses. And a lot of times we do see their return on investment for sure. But what do you say to folks who are reluctant to want to invest in themselves?
Well, you alluded to it just a few minutes ago, Arquella, and I always say that discomfort leads to growth. It does not always feel good in the moment, But when you can get on the other side and reflect, and you can see how much you've grown and how much of a ripple effect that growth causes for other people as well. And then also for the reluctance, my spin on an Albert Einstein quote is, if you're not learning and growing, you're dying. And so continuing to always learn and grow. And, I've been a leader for years, either by definition or title or however you want to couch it. And I don't know everything. I still don't know everything. And I don't think that I ever will. And so it's an opportunity for me to continue to learn and grow. And I think that that's the opportunity for leaders as well. This reluctance is, there's this pressure, especially inside of organizations and societies, when we get that title of leader, that we're supposed to have it all figured out and we're supposed to know everything. And, during a crisis, we're supposed to keep it all together. And yes, as a leader, we do have some of that responsibility, but we have to be aware of ourselves and our response to that. And so the only way that you can do that is to go within, and acknowledge that inner critic that you have. We all have a mean one, myself included. And, what thoughts that inner critic brings about, and what stories we make up about things, and then what behaviors and actions we take as a result of that.
Oh my
No,
gosh.
it's great. That's great.
That
Yeah.
was so powerful to me.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, definitely. Again, and as adults, we're growing every day, right? We're learning something new every day, right? And then too, right, we tell we tell ourselves these stories, right? And so we have to be able to, how do we minimize that, right? Because we tell ourselves stories, make up stories every day, all day, right? That's not
Yes.
true.
And I always
So,
say to myself and other people, when something continues to keep happening to you, and this harkens back to my experience in 2006 and 2008, when I realized that, hey, I'm the common thread in all of the issues.
mhm.
When it keeps happening to you, or if a similar circumstance keeps coming into your life, I always pause and say, what are the lessons that I'm supposed to be getting from this? And sometimes they're really tough lessons, but it leads to that discomfort, leads to growth, and unlocks more awareness and, more grace and love that we can have for ourselves, especially as leaders.
When you talked about the mean critic, the phrase mean girls came into mind for me. And I wonder, Joni, if sometimes through our inner mean critic, if we actually attract people who show up and give voice to those things that are in our head. And if we could just turn that off, it would probably then surround us with people who give us life affirming messages as well.
Exactly. There is a season and a reason for all people that come into our lives. And sometimes it's for those hard lessons that allows us to be able to process through something that opens up, for more greatness to evolve in our lives.
Well, Joni, I look at you and Arquella, and you all are business owners. Arquella, you said you bet on yourself all day, every day. Joni, I know you probably echo that sentiment. But what if someone's listening today and they're devoted to their self-development, but they're within a corporate structure, or they work inside of some other type of organization, and they're relying on their leaders to invest in them, or for a training and development budget to help them with financial investments in these type of development programs and retreats. What's the pitch? How do you explain the ROI for investment in these types of programs?
Yeah, my thoughts are, and Arquella, I would love to hear yours as well. My thoughts are that for these companies and organizations, if you're not investing in your people, then you're not going to have sustainability, because everybody desires some level of growth and development. They want to feel like they're progressing, they're evolving. And so they will go somewhere to find it. And so investing in your people is actually creating a culture of sustainability for you, because those skills they can certainly use and grow and develop while they're with your organization, but they also have these skills for life, for wherever they go. And also it applies not only to them at work, but in their life personally as well.
I definitely agree. And two, there's a quote, right? And it says that, what if you, and people like, what if you train your people and they leave? Or what if you train your people and they, stay? So,
Exactly.
right. And so, yeah, we want that sustainability. We want it increases engagement and increases retention. And there's study after study that shows that, people want that development, especially now that we have 5 generations working, that our younger generation wants more development. And so definitely we want to continue to make sure that we're putting that into the budgets. And so people can get that continuation of development, as well as, again, being able to stay ahead of the trends and technology and things that are happening. So again, the company can continue to be profitable and it can continue to grow. And again, to your point, Joni, seeing that sustainability for sure. So it definitely is an investment, right? And I tell people it's an investment, right? That you definitely will see the results, right? Long term.
Absolutely. I mean, an increase in performance and productivity, people showing up for work, not just to do their job, but because they're fired up and excited about the work that they're doing. When they can become aware of what their strengths are and how they can positively contribute, to the organization, to your point, it increases engagement and, the retention. People do stay. I love that what you said about what if I train my people and they leave? What if you train them and they stay?
All the better.
Oftentimes will, if they feel like they're making a difference. And I know you brought up the younger generations, but I've even seen, baby boomers, some Gen X folks that are also like really hungry and grateful for development opportunities. And the progressive ones are realizing that they're unlocking some things that they didn't know about themselves, even as they are in more of the twilight of their career and figuring out what's next.
It's never too late to become the leader that you want.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's great. And so, Joni, just, I have another question I want you to share, but just, we talk a lot about leadership and development, but who are some of those leaders that you most admire and why? So if you want to share, your top 1 or 2, right, who you really, again, admire.
Yeah. So I really struggle with sharing a specific person here because I don't always know. But I will tell you that the type of leaders that I most admire are the ones who are willing to take a step back and to dive, head first, feet first, all in into becoming self-aware and taking that introspective journey and really exploring what type of person am I? What type of a leader am I? Where do I thrive? Where do I not? Those are the type of leaders that I really admire because it's not an easy journey. And, maybe those folks who have, like me, I have a background in biochemistry and I'm not really doing that per se in the traditional sense of being in a lab, but I still geek out about emotional intelligence, which is all about the brain and how the brain functions and the neural pathways and all of that. So it's tied together. And so there may be people out there, leaders out there who are trained, technically trained or have a background in this or that. And they have a limiting belief that says, oh, you could never do that, or you should never do that. But it's when you really become self-aware of what lights you up and what you're passionate about. And believe me, it was not an easy journey. It wasn't always like, oh, poof, and there it is. It was, okay, you find yourself in, a position that you are absolutely loathing, every day. But you are the one that agreed to do this job or this position. And then you finally come to the realization, this is not in alignment. This is not the path that I'm supposed to be on. And it opens up another step for you to take in that direction to be able to do that.
I have a question, Joni. You refer to the time period of 2006 to 2008. It lands with me as like a watershed moment for you, a true pivot in your life. Have you had one since then? Do you feel like we all as humans go through seasons where we have these moments, or was that just the one that sent you on the trajectory?
Oh, no, no, I've had several since then. And I feel like that when that key unlocked, it was like, I put the pedal to the metal on my life and, going through processing a lot of experiences. And, the story that I was just alluding to was my own story of finding myself in a position that I said yes to, but it was in no way, shape, or form in alignment with who I wanted to be. But I have a perfectionistic tendency that I'm still recovering from, that I said yes to this. I have to do this, even though every part of me is saying, no, this is not in alignment with you. And so, what happened as a result was I got terminated from this position. And, what it taught me is that they really saved me from myself, because I was continuing to push through and say, you can do this, you should do this. You said you would do this. You can't, pull back on your commitment. But you absolutely can. And you can say, you know what, this is, and I said to them, thank you so much, because this was not a good fit for me. It was not a good fit for you. And, I'm grateful for all that this taught all of us here. And was the next thing right there in front of me for me to do? No, but it put me on that path to take steps to get there. So there have been several of those moments. And, developing the program for women was another one of those pivotal moments, is that I felt like during the pandemic, we all felt disconnected, especially us who are extroverts. I'm thankful for technology that allowed us to connect and see each other. But I was really craving a tight-knit community of women that would support one another. And, as they say in the Field of Dreams movie, if you build it, they will come. And that is what I absolutely desire. So that was another watershed moment of, we women need a community to support one another through life, and to not pass judgment, and, to support each other on that journey of self-awareness and self-love.
You hit on something so powerful, Joni, where you talked about you left that one opportunity and the next thing didn't show up right away. It's that blank space that can be so scary. It's really easy to leave an opportunity when you have this amazing one that's right there. How do you help our listeners reframe that blank space, reframe that season of waiting for the next great thing? Because that's what can be so discouraging.
Yeah, it's learning, I say, because it is hard, and you are going to have that resistance. And, that first thing that's going to come to mind is that mean inner critic, right? The mean girl is going to be there saying like, you should have, or why did you, all the things are going to come up. But it is learning to embrace that there is power in the pause. And, having that time that we don't often give ourselves, but opportunities provide it sometimes reluctantly, to take that pause and say, okay, where am I really at? And what do I really want to do? And what do I really have to offer? And what are my gifts? And be grateful, for that opportunity. One of the things that I did to survive that circumstance, whenever I was put on a performance improvement plan, was I actually sat in the lab and wrote a list of gratitudes, because I was like rock bottom. I'm at rock bottom here, and I don't know what else to do. So I am just going to start with gratitudes. What am I grateful for? And so little things like that, I tell people all the time, I do a lot of woo-woo things. And I was right with everyone in the beginning of saying, this is all woo-woo stuff, but I've been doing it for years now, and it works. Mantras, affirmations, prayers, meditations, all those types of things are things that you need to be aware of and have in your toolbox that can help you to be self-aware and to find that power in the pause.
And it's not woo-woo stuff. Sorry, Arquella, go ahead.
Yeah, it's not. It's not. I do the same daily, so it helps for sure.
It does.
Yeah, definitely. Joni, this has been wonderful. You have been thank you for what you're doing and just as you're continuing to make an impact. And as we close, I want to find out what's your superpower, right? I've been doing this with some women leaders, like what's your superpower, right? What you want to leave us with today?
Yeah. So I think my superpower is being able to create safe spaces for leaders to go on that journey of self-awareness and to not feel judged, to feel safe to go where they need to go, to unlock that potential and to tap into that power that they have inside of them. So being able to create a safe space and a safe environment is really important and conducive to allowing for that to happen.
And thank you. And thank you for Yes, and thank you for doing that every day. Thank you, Joni. This has been a great conversation and definitely, again, a lot for our listeners to take in and consider for sure. And so that wraps our dialogue here at the Alchemy Consulting Group podcast. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in and engaging with us on this journey towards, again, enriching organizational cultures and leadership. Remember that each conversation is a step towards transformation, asking you all to continue to lead and innovate and thrive until we connect again. Please like and subscribe to the podcast. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you for tuning in to the Alchemy Consulting Group podcast. Follow this podcast on social media and help continue the conversation by sharing your business and leadership best practices. Subscribe to this podcast wherever you consume yours and share this podcast with your organizations and networks. Let's strengthen the community of those committed to responsible leadership and work environments where everyone can thrive.